Hey Reddit, long-time lurker, first-time poster. I, 32M, need to get this off my chest. It's been a hellish few months, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened with my family, specifically my sister, let's call her Bianca, 35F. Bianca and I have never been close. There's always been this undercurrent of competition, and honestly, a bit of malice on her part. Growing up, she was the golden child, always praised for everything, while I felt like I was constantly under scrutiny. Looking back, I can see how she subtly undermined me, twisting my words, exaggerating my mistakes, and playing the victim whenever I tried to stand up for myself. Our parents, Carol, 68F, and Robert, 70M, seemed completely blind to Bianca's behavior. They adored her and often dismissed my concerns as jealousy or oversensitivity. This dynamic continued into adulthood. Bianca always seemed to need something, financial help, emotional support, usually after some self-inflicted drama. And my parents were always there to provide it, no questions asked. I, on the other hand, have always been fiercely independent. I worked hard, built a career, and generally kept to myself. I wasn't perfect, but I was a decent son and brother, always there when they genuinely needed me. The real trouble started a couple of years ago when Bianca's life took a downturn. Her business venture failed spectacularly, she went through a messy divorce, and she ended up moving back in with our parents. This put a significant strain on their finances and their emotional well-being. I tried to be supportive, offering practical help and a listening ear, but Bianca mostly just directed her anger and frustration at me. That's when her campaign against me really kicked into high gear. She started subtly poisoning the well with my parents. Little comments here and there, insinuations about my character, painting me as selfish, unsupportive, even cruel. She would cry to them about how I was cold and uncaring towards her struggles, conveniently omitting her own role in her misfortunes and my attempts to help. Over time, her manipulation became more blatant. She would twist my words in conversations, take things I said out of context, and present a completely fabricated version of events to our parents. If I disagreed with her on something, she would run to mom and dad, claiming I was attacking her or being deliberately difficult. My parents, worn down by Bianca's constant drama and seemingly desperate to maintain peace, started to believe her. They became increasingly distant and critical of me. Phone calls became shorter, visits felt strained, and I could sense a shift in their attitude. They started echoing Bianca's accusations, questioning my motives and accusing me of not being there for the family. I tried to talk to them, to explain my side of things, but they were completely under Bianca's spell. Every attempt to defend myself was met with skepticism and accusations of being defensive or trying to blame Bianca. It was like talking to a brick wall. The climax of this whole nightmare came on Mom's birthday a few months ago. I had planned a special lunch for her at her favorite restaurant. I arrived early to set up a small cake and some flowers. Bianca was already there, looking particularly fragile and teary-eyed. As soon as Mom and Dad arrived, Bianca launched into a dramatic recounting of some perceived slight from me. I hadn't even spoken to her that day. She sobbed about how I was always trying to make her life harder and how I clearly resented her. My parents listened intently, their faces hardening as she spoke. Before I even had a chance to say a word, my mother turned to me, her eyes filled with a coldness I had never seen before. "Austin," she said, her voice trembling with anger, "I am so disappointed in you. On my birthday, you choose to make your sister cry? You are a cruel and heartless son." My father chimed in, his voice equally harsh. "We've tried to ignore Bianca's complaints, but it's clear she's right. You've become a monster, Austin. I don't even recognize you anymore." The words hit me like a physical blow. On my mother's birthday, the day I wanted to celebrate her, I was being accused of being a monster by the very people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. I was stunned into silence for a moment. Then, a wave of anger and hurt washed over me. "A monster?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "You really believe that? After everything?" I looked at Bianca, who was now dabbing her eyes with a smug look on her face. The realization hit me with full force, she had deliberately orchestrated this. She had waited for this day, knowing it would inflict the maximum amount of pain. "Fine," I said, my voice cold and steady despite the turmoil inside me. "If that's what you think of me, then so be it." I stood up, grabbed the cake and flowers I had brought, and walked out of the restaurant. I didn't look back. The months that followed were incredibly difficult. My parents made a few half-hearted attempts to reach out, but their messages were filled with justifications for their behavior and subtle blame shifting. Bianca, of course, remained silent, likely basking in her victory. I went through a period of intense anger, resentment, and sadness. I questioned everything I thought I knew about my family. How could they believe such lies? How could they turn against me so easily? I started therapy to help me process everything. My therapist has been amazing, helping me understand the dynamics at play and validating my feelings. She pointed out the long-standing patterns of manipulation and the unhealthy enmeshment between Bianca and my parents. Slowly, I started to accept that I couldn't change their perception of me. I couldn't force them to see the truth. The only thing I could control was my own reaction and my own well-being. I focused on my friends, my career, and my hobbies. I started building a life that wasn't centered around the constant drama of my family. It was lonely at times, but it was also liberating. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living for myself. Then, a few weeks ago, something unexpected happened. I received a message from my father. It was short and to the point: "Carol is unwell. Can you come to the hospital?" My initial reaction was a mix of apprehension and resentment. After everything they had put me through, did I really owe them anything? But despite the hurt, a part of me still cared. This was my mother. I went to the hospital. My father looked and worried. Bianca was there too, but she kept her distance, a strained silence between us. Seeing my mother lying in the hospital bed, pale and weak, shook me. All the anger and resentment seemed to fade away, replaced by a wave of concern. We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the beeping of the machines. Over the next few days, I visited the hospital regularly. My father seemed to soften, and we started to have tentative conversations, mostly about Mom's condition. Bianca remained aloof, occasionally offering a curt nod but mostly glued to her phone. During one of my visits, when Bianca wasn't there, my mother reached out and took my hand. Her grip was weak, but her gaze was steady. "Austin," she said, her voice raspy, I need to tell you something." My heart pounded in my chest. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she continued, pausing to catch her breath. "About everything that's happened, with you and Bianca." She looked down at our intertwined hands. I think we've been unfair to you. Your father and we let Bianca's, her difficulties, cloud our judgment." Tears welled up in her eyes. She told us things, made you out to be someone you're not. And we believed her. We wanted to believe her, maybe because it was easier than facing her own struggles. I was stunned. This was the first time either of my parents had ever acknowledged the possibility that Bianca might not be the innocent victim they always portrayed her as. "I'm so sorry, Austin," Mom whispered, squeezing my hand. "We were wrong. You've always been a good son. And we pushed you away. On my birthday, that was unforgivable." My own eyes started to water. It wasn't a complete exoneration, but it was a start. It was an acknowledgement of the pain they had caused. "Mom," I said, my voice thick with emotion, it's okay." She shook her head weakly. "No, it's not okay. But I hope, maybe someday, we can start to heal." Over the next few weeks, as Mom slowly recovered, the dynamic started to shift. My father became more open about Bianca's manipulative tendencies, admitting that he had started to see patterns he had previously ignored. He even shared instances where Bianca's stories hadn't quite added up. Bianca, sensing the shift, became more isolated and defensive. She would often be absent during my visits to Mom and Dad's house, and when she was there, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension. Then, one evening, my father called me. "Austin," he said, his voice surprisingly firm, "Bianca is moving out." He explained that he and Mom had had a long and difficult conversation with Bianca. They had expressed their concerns about her behavior and the strain it had put on the family. They had gently suggested that it was time for her to become more independent and take responsibility for her own life. To my surprise, Bianca had agreed, albeit with some initial resistance and tears. A few weeks later, Bianca moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't a magical fix, and the years of damage wouldn't disappear overnight, but it felt like a significant step forward. My relationship with my parents is still a work in progress. There's a lot of healing that needs to happen, and trust needs to be rebuilt. But the lines of communication are open again. They are starting to see Bianca for who she is, and they are beginning to acknowledge the pain they caused me. As for Bianca, I maintain a polite distance. I'm not ready to forgive and forget, but I'm also not actively holding on to resentment. Maybe, with time and space, things can eventually improve, but my priority right now is rebuilding my relationship with my parents and focusing on my own peace of mind. This whole experience has been incredibly painful, but it has also taught me some valuable lessons about family dynamics, manipulation, and the importance of self-respect. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to love you the most can hurt you the deepest. But healing is possible, even if it looks different than you initially imagined. And sometimes, a painful chapter needs to close before a more peaceful one can begin. Thanks for listening, Reddit. It helped to finally share this. Update 1: Bianca's unraveling. Hey Reddit, things have taken another unexpected and frankly, unsettling turn in the saga with my family. As I mentioned in my last update, Bianca moving out felt like a step towards a healthier dynamic. My parents were more lucid, acknowledging her manipulative behavior, and our conversations were becoming less strained. I even started to feel a sliver of hope for some semblance of normalcy in the future. However, that fragile peace has been shattered by Bianca's reaction to her newfound independence and the shift in my parents' perception of her. It's like the rug has been pulled out from under her, and she is not handling it well. Initially, after moving out, Bianca tried to maintain the status quo. She would still call my parents frequently, expecting the same level of attention and support she was used to. She would downplay her responsibilities and exaggerate any minor inconvenience, seemingly hoping they would rush to her rescue. But my parents, now with clearer eyes, started setting boundaries. They were still supportive, but they weren't indulging her every whim. They encouraged her to handle her own problems and take responsibility for her choices. This shift seemed to confuse and anger Bianca. Her calls became less frequent but more volatile. She would accuse my parents of abandoning her, of being influenced by me, and of not loving her anymore. She even started making veiled threats, hinting at cutting them off completely if they didn't return to their old ways. Then, things escalated. A few weeks ago, my mother received a series of disturbing emails from Bianca. They started as angry rants, repeating the accusations she had been making over the phone. But they quickly became more erratic and accusatory. She accused my mother of turning against her, of always favoring me, and of being a terrible mother. The language was increasingly aggressive and irrational. My parents were deeply shaken by these emails. They showed them to me, their faces etched with worry and confusion. They couldn't understand this level of rage and vitriol. I, unfortunately, wasn't entirely surprised. I had always sensed a deep well of resentment in Bianca, and it seemed like the loss of her privileged position had uncorked it. We tried to reach out to Bianca, but she refused to answer our calls or respond to our messages. Her social media became a stream of cryptic and often negative posts, seemingly directed at our family. Then came the incident that truly crossed the line. Last week, my parents found their car tires slashed in their driveway. There was no other vandalism, no signs of a random act. The police are investigating, but suspicion immediately fell on Bianca. She had been increasingly vocal about her anger towards them, and this felt like a direct act of retaliation. My parents are now genuinely scared of her. They've installed security cameras and are being extra cautious. The sense of peace we had started to build has been replaced by fear and anxiety. I confronted Bianca directly, sending her a text expressing my disgust at her behavior and asking her point blank if she was responsible for the vandalism. Her response was chilling. She didn't deny it outright but instead sent back a rambling message about how we had all wronged her and how she was finally going to make us see the truth. It's like she's completely unraveled. The manipulation has morphed into something darker and more volatile. My parents are considering seeking a restraining order if her behavior continues or escalates. This whole situation has taken a truly disturbing turn. I had hoped for healing and reconciliation, but it seems Bianca is determined to lash out and cause as much pain as possible. It's a stark reminder that sometimes, even when you think things are getting better, the damage runs deeper than you realize. I'm now more concerned than ever for my parents' safety and well-being. The complexities of family dynamics have taken a truly dark and frightening twist. I'll keep you updated if anything further develops, but right now, the focus is on protecting my parents from Bianca's increasingly erratic behavior. Final update: a fragile new normal. Hey Reddit, it's been a few more months since my last update, and a semblance of a new normal has settled over our family, though it's far from the picture I once envisioned. The aftermath of Bianca's escalating behavior was intense. Following the tire-slashing incident and her disturbing messages, my parents, with my strong encouragement and support, did pursue a restraining order against her. It was a difficult decision for them, a formal acknowledgement of the deep rift that had formed, but ultimately necessary for their safety and peace of mind. The legal process was stressful and upsetting for everyone involved. Bianca, predictably, reacted with fury and denial. She lashed out in court, painting herself as the victim and accusing us of cruelty and betrayal. However, the evidence of her erratic behavior and the direct threats she had made were enough for the judge to grant the restraining order. Since then, there has been a chilling silence from Bianca. Her social media has gone quiet, and she hasn't attempted to contact my parents or me directly. There's a sense of unease that lingers, a constant awareness that the situation could potentially flare up again, but for now, there is a fragile peace. My relationship with my parents has continued to heal. The shared experience of dealing with Bianca's unraveling, and their clear acknowledgement of her long-standing manipulation, has created a stronger bond between us. We talk more openly and honestly than we have in years. They express remorse for the pain they caused me, and I, in turn, see their vulnerability and the extent to which they were manipulated. The scars of the past remain, but there's a genuine effort on all sides to move forward. My mother's health has stabilized, and she's slowly regaining her strength. The ordeal with Bianca was undoubtedly a significant stressor, and her recovery has been a gradual process. My father has been a rock, caring for her tirelessly and providing unwavering support. Seeing them navigate this challenging period together has been a reminder of the underlying strength of their relationship, even amidst the family turmoil. As for me, I've continued with therapy, processing the years of emotional manipulation and the recent dramatic events. I've learned to set firmer boundaries and to trust my own instincts. The experience has been a harsh lesson in the complexities of family and the importance of prioritizing my own well-being. Life isn't perfect. The shadow of Bianca's actions still lingers, and there's a sadness about the family dynamic that will likely never fully disappear. The easy, loving family unit I once knew is gone, replaced by something more cautious and perhaps more real. However, there is a sense of closure. The cycle of manipulation, at least for now, has been broken. My parents are no longer under Bianca's spell, and I am no longer the scapegoat. We have navigated a truly dark period and emerged, scarred but not broken. The satisfying ending isn't a fairy tale reconciliation with Bianca. Instead, it's the quiet strength of rebuilding broken trust with my parents, the relief of knowing they are safe, and the personal growth I've experienced in learning to protect myself. It's the acceptance that family can be complicated and painful, but healing and a new form of connection are possible, even after the most tumultuous storms. Thank you again, Reddit, for providing a space to share this difficult journey. Your support and insights were invaluable,